Everything old is new again. America's entertainment pop culture talk show.
It may well possess a rudimentary intelligence.
I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
Felt a great disturbance in the force.
Hello, I'm Mr. Red.
Come on, bark like a dog for me.
Where's the goodies? Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
I bet you wouldn't have done anything like this if Mom and Dad were here.
You filthy criminal.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Here are your hosts, Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
It's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday.
Got family game night on the brain?
Wednesday. It's Wednesday.
Bring home a new game and bring your family together with Pictureka and other great Hasbro games.
Pictureka!
Hasbro Family Game Night.
Welcome back to Everything Old is New Again. This is Douglas Viviani with the gamer himself, David Cohen.
Here I am.
Why are you a gamer? What does that mean?
I think it's someone who's like addicted to just playing games.
Now, are you?
But video games.
So
I think that's where the name comes from.
Exactly. So you're really not a gamer because you're a vintage gamer. Let's put it that way.
I'm a vintage gamer
because we're talking about not smartphones and not tablets, which came about in really in a resurgence of 2011 to 2013. It seems the industry says, the board game industry says that their sales decreased when tablets and apps first came about. But now I think we're seeing a little bit of a turnaround in some ways. Hasbro and they've presented themselves across the board as an advertising scheme, right? An advertising scheme to present people and families with something cool. Like it's cool on a Friday, let's say, to have a family game night with the family, and that is led to what I think is a resurgence and an upgrade in games, board games. There are new ones. We're going to take a look at old ones that are now resurfacing for family game night. I think it's a great idea. The sales are now in the $8 billion every year for new games, and I think that families are catching on because it's nice to, all this technology is fun and everything, but sit down with your kids one-on-one and just play, no matter what age, a game. And as a parent, by the way, if they're young enough to have a little bit of ego problems, let them have a win every now and again. Don't win every game or defeat them in every game. It'll get a little
worked
upset
for Tiger Woods' dad, right? Didn't he do that?
Yeah.
He used to beat Tiger every time.
game.
He would not let the kid win.
And look how he turned out.
Yeah, he's a miserable SOB.
Exactly. So
Anyway.
you want to let them win every so often. And speaking of winning, we have a winner with us here.
Yes, we do.
Member.
Returning champ. in Don't Break the Ice.
Exactly. Dan Neuburger is here. He's a gentleman that we know all the way back in high school, Half Hills High School East. We graduated together. We had some fun then. We're now having some fun. He's a new member of our, what we say, Rogues Gallery.
Yes.
Of Everything Old is New Again. Dan Neuburger, welcome back.
Nice to see you, gentlemen.
You are a vintage toy and game aficionado. We've just labeled you that.
I'm glad that I have a title that
you can be proud of.
I can be proud of. My parents can be proud of, right?
And we have the exclusive rights to have you broadcast with us and owning us when it comes to toys and novelties.
Oh, I did not know that, but thank you for filling
You'll be signing that on the way out.
I missed that in the contract.
Now, that leads to a question of last week we were talking about a lot of different toys that most of which you'll see now and see pop up now, so to speak. And there's a game here that I used to play as a kid and loved it called Trouble, if you remember this one.
Sure.
And the main thing that you may remember about this is the pop-up dice right in the middle. I'll do it so you can hear it.
There's a bubble on it.
Right? But I purchased that for my kids, and we play it. But it's a little more cheesy kind of, right?
Flimsy.
Yeah, a little flimsy. The game is still there, but I don't know. It's maybe since it used to be round, it's now square. It used to have a little different ambiance as a kid. But have you, Mr. Neuburger, played this game in the last 35 years ever?
Not at all. I must admit.
And David Cohen?
I have, sadly.
And who'd you play it with?
Against myself.
And did you win?
Constantly lost. No, I did because I believe we played this with my son when he was younger.
It's a very simple but kind of a cool game. You just go around with the pegs. You go around the board. After, you got to hit the dice and see what number you get.
And it tells you how many moves you can make based on the roll of the die.
And if you land on your adversary, they have to go back. They're in trouble. They've got to go back home.
To the beginning, right.
So there's a little strategy to it. So
little.
As a parent playing these games, Dan, what's the strategy? Seriously, we joke around, but you want to keep your kids interested, and in some levels, some of these games are not interesting to you as a parent. But what playing it with your child is or is not. Like, how do you approach this psychologically? Playing these kind of games that are some of them really cool, we enjoy, but some of them are kind of like, well, they're like an entry level game into boarding, let's say.
I think with all games, it's a concept of beat them into submission. No, all kidding aside, I mean,
that was kidding.
The idea is not actually who wins the game. So, as you had mentioned, it's a great idea to let your kids win, if not all the time, certainly every once in a while. It's more the interaction of playing the game and having fun and laughing together as a family, sitting across the table from one another, which they don't get. They don't get the same type of interaction when they're playing on their iPad or their phone, or the predecessor to that was the Game Boy. It was the same thing. And we had when our oldest child was growing up, he was glued to the Game Boy, and we would use that as a reward and punishment. If something bad happened, we'd say, you lost the Game Boy for a day.
Right.
And if we wanted to incent him, we'd say, do the following, and you can play with the Game Boy for an hour or two.
And I have found with these games that we've played already, and we will play this week, we played last week, and we played some this week on the air, that the kids actually enjoy, and again, there's a certain age, I don't know if it's relevant to teens, maybe it will be, but they enjoy this more than sitting around watching TV or playing a tablet by themselves, or at least as much as, let's put it that way. They look forward to it. They ask, what game are we playing tonight, or they look forward to it after school, and so I think that's kind of nice to see that human reaction and interaction is not totally gone by the wayside.
Yeah, it's strange. My kids are a little older than yours are, but when they were younger, they really didn't want to ever play. I shouldn't say ever. They didn't want to play games with my wife and I a lot. They certainly would. But now that they're older and they come home, there are days if it's rotten weather outside and they're there with their friends, instead of just sitting in front of the TV and watching TV, we'll take out a game and we'll all start playing. And it's fun. I mean, even as young adults, it's a lot of fun to sit around the table and laugh with them and just talk about, well, when I was little and we used to play this game, it wasn't such a flimsy, crappy board.
Right.
It's just a way to to share a little bit about yourself with your kids too.
Because as you're playing, you can, talk about your memories, and maybe it leads into a discussion of, I used to play your uncle in this game, and talk about other family members, and just share life stories. And I think kids, I don't know the memory of kids at 4, 5, 6, 7. I do have memories in that age.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But even if they don't exactly remember the story or the event, they remember the time with their parents, and maybe it builds a little bit of a bond.
It's like a coloring book. I mean, they know the stories about their relatives. The lines are drawn, what they look like, but it's filling in the colors, that the stories that actually help them to understand more about their own family and their parents' friends, or what they did when they were growing up, and knowing more about their own immediately nuclear family. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's important, and I'm actually glad to see that the statistics show that game night is actually coming back. I think it's a really good thing and healthy thing.
Yeah, and on television we're seeing, and we did a show about that, a lot of these games on television are coming back. The game shows once in a while, not every day during the day, but we were on a trip a couple weeks back, and we turned on the TV just trying to find something for the family to watch, and again, the younger children, but To Tell the Truth was on it. I didn't even know that was on TV, and it was just so fun to play with a 4 and 7-year-old and myself and my wife, all trying to guess which person, what it was, as 3 people have a unique profession or a unique something they do, and you ask questions, you try to figure out which of the one is telling the truth and which is the person that made the smallest house in the world, or whatever it might be. And just to interact with that, we watched it once for a half hour, and they still talk about it. It's 3 weeks later, but still they still talk about it.
I think that's dangerous. Watching a show that teaches your kid how to lie effectively. Yeah. But I will say that, I mean, I enjoy still watching shows like Jeopardy. I like competing with the pencil neck geeks that play on those shows, and I'm amazed at how smart these people are. But every once in a while, I get one right. I'm so psyched with myself.
Right, and you want to. We'll be back on Everything Old is New. We're going to continue talking about games, and we'll play some games right after this.
Everything old is new again. America's entertainment pop culture talk show.
It may well possess a rudimentary intelligence.
I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
Felt a great disturbance in the force.
Hello, I'm Mr. Red.
Come on, bark like a dog for me.
Where's the goodies? Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
I bet you wouldn't have done anything like this if Mom and Dad were here.
You filthy criminal.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Here are your hosts, Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
It's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday.
Got family game night on the brain?
Wednesday. It's Wednesday.
Bring home a new game and bring your family together with Picturica and other great Hasbro games.
Picturica!
Hasbro Family Game Night.
Welcome back to Everything Old is New Again. Family Game Night is now on Everything Old is New Again. And we're joined by Dan Neuburger and, of course, the gamer, or the vintage gamer himself, David Cohen, continuing to take a look at the resurgence of board games and kind of like toys, too. There are some things that are toys that we're talking about that have come back. I really thought that our discussion last week of the Aurora race cars is something that actually makes me want to go and for the next birthday of one of these children buy that Aurora racetrack now because it's so updated the cars don't fall off the track. I can't.
So you're buying it for you and under the guise of for them.
That's the reason why I mentioned it. Is there a game that we've talked about yet that either of you want to like buy? And
I'm more interested in why you decided to have kids as a reason to buy toys. I think that's a much more interesting show.
Well, we could answer that question, but it would take another 2 shows at least. We might as well. Maybe we'll have Fondue Guy get
or years of therapy.
Exactly. Part of that is certainly, or all of this is. The parents looking back and wanting to share something that they have a great memory of when they were a child, because we don't have memories, most of us that have children now, even of video games on a tablet. We've got video games which we'll talk about another time, like Pong and this Asteroids and all of that we did play, but it did take us away from the interaction. It is unique, is it not, to play a board game, even from, Pong or a television, one of these video games that you're playing against somebody. Is it the same experience or not? Dan, what do you think?
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Board games
I'm kidding. No, I mean, clearly it's a different experience. I mean, I think that there's something to be said for having members of the family or even friends just, sitting around a table and interacting with one another rather than just staring at a screen and moving your thumbs every couple of seconds. It's a gigantic difference. And actually, I think that there is something to be said for the skill of learning how to not only interact but also to win and lose in a game with life in general as you get older. I mean, there's times I'll be sitting in a meeting with people and I just see the way that they treat and interact people, and in your mind's eye you're looking back on, that's the kind of guy that cheated. When you played Monopoly, that was the guy that you never wanted to be the banker, as an example, right? Because you just knew that you couldn't trust him. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's great that people are getting more into playing games where they're actually physically sitting with somebody and playing the game and talking in between moves rather than just blindly staring at a screen and waiting.
You make a good point, too, because, not to get political at all, but in our world, in our country, we're seeing so much people just not being able to accept one side of an argument or another and still be friends and move on and say, all right, we agree to disagree, or I lost that argument, or my point of view, maybe I do need to learn a lesson from this other person. And I think some of these games, you can see some people that, figuratively speaking, they don't like something that happens, and they're kind of like, like Leo is, and screams and yells, a 4-year-old, and stomps his feet instead of saying, let me learn something from this.
Listening is a skill. It really is. I mean, and it's a skill that you have to learn when you're young. It's not, if you don't learn how to listen to other people when you're a young child, I can guarantee to you, as an adult, you don't know how to listen to people. You may think that you do, but you don't.
But also to have an open mind, too. While you're listening, maybe this person's playing Monopoly better than you and beating you all the time. Maybe you can figure out why are they.
Yeah, you learn.
Instead of just, being adversarial, maybe you can open your mind to a new thought.
I also think that there's something to being a gracious loser, we'll say, right? Nobody likes to lose, but in life, you don't win all the time. If you're a baseball player and you hit the ball 3 out of 10 times, you're doing pretty well, right?
Correct.
In business, I always tell people, if you're not making mistakes, then you're not pushing the envelope. I want you to make some mistakes, but a lot of people just aren't comfortable making a mistake. And I think, in part at least, it stems from their childhood and what happened when they played a game and lost the game. Did the other person have a tantrum?
Right.
Or did they just say it was a fun game? Let's play again.
Right. Or did the winner gloat and, stick in your face every 2 minutes and make you feel bad about it? It's supposed to be fun. Right. And my wife's the entire opposite way. When we play these games, she almost has a disinterest in winning. She doesn't even care. Well, no, that's a whole other story. But it's refreshing in that she'll play, but if you win or lose, she's okay with it, and she moves on. It's not the end of the world,
I love to win, but I also know that sometimes you have to let the other person win.
And you're going to lose. You are going to lose in life, and you got to know how to get back up from it. So you learn that from sports, and you can also learn that from Mousetrap.
Race your mouse around the board, building a mousetrap as you go. Then comes the funniest part of Mousetrap game. Mousetrap! Mousetrap! The nuttiest, funniest game you've ever seen.
Now, do you remember this game, David Cohen?
I do, but I never played it, I have to admit.
I never played it, but we always put it together. If you recall this game, we have it here. I'm trying to just take it out. It's too detailed and complicated to even describe or play on the air. Or set up.
But we're going to try it anyway.
And there's always like that. This is the game, if you know what this is, where as you go around the board, you set up a mousetrap, which is more or less a number of different... what do you call these little different events that happen as you're going through, that eventually you set it up where one steel ball starts off a chain of events, and you go through what would you call this?
Like a bathtub,
and then it goes through different machinations, and eventually through all these different machinations downstairs and so forth, eventually the mouse is trapped in this this whole thing there's a diver, dives off a diving board into something, and the vibration then sets off another reaction. It's a chain of events down the line.
So I have to admit, I never liked this game. No, I didn't, because first of all, you had to be an engineer in order to be able to play it effectively. But invariably, one of my brothers or I would lose a piece, and then the whole game didn't work.
That's the killer. That's exactly I was going to say. We played this a couple of times, and inevitably now we can't find the steel ball. Without the steel ball, there's nothing happening.
No point.
And you need a rubber band, and if you lose that rubber band, who's got rubber bands?
And it has to be the right size rubber band.
Exactly.
It's not just any rubber band.
Exactly. You're right. So it's cool, it's fun, it's interesting, but it is good for like a first couple of times, and then you go, we've lost the pieces. I'm not going.
I wish that your listeners could see this box just filled to the brim with tiny little plastic pieces.
Yeah, listen. Here you go. Look at. I had the steel ball. Here you go. I found it. But yeah, and if you lose one of these pieces, you're shot. But I think the novelty of it is pretty cool. Look it up on Google if you don't know, or YouTube, and watch the interaction. It's almost like a live dominoes kind of event. No, watching this game. When you say you didn't play it, what did you do with it, Dave?
I didn't have it. I never had a chance to play it, nor do I have any desire after opening the box net.
Something that we did play, I bet, and we can continue talking about for this little bit of the section, and the next section of our show is a game that, I don't know, I think it's how do you describe this? This is a war game, a game of world domination.
Race your mouse around the board, building a
No, that's not it.
Go.
That's not the game.
This is local domination.
This is it here.
Risk. Win the game, and you win the world. Parker Brothers kind of fun.
There you go. Parker Brothers now has gotten involved. Besides Hasbro and what was the other one?
Milton Bradley. We
now have Parker Brothers. Just describe a smidge. We've got 15 seconds, Dan. We'll get a little tease on what is Risk.
Oh my gosh! Okay, so Risk is a game that will take about 4 weeks to complete. First of all, but there are countries on the map, and you at the beginning of the game get certain countries that you represent, and you have armies to protect them, and your objective is to essentially enter into war with everybody else that's playing the game and take their countries away from them.
We'll continue right after this. Continue with Risk and some stories. We played it in college, actually. Had a good time with it. And everything old is new again. We'll be back.
You're listening to Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
It's Stratego, Milton Bradley's terrific game of strategy for two. You command captains, lieutenants, and colonels. You may capture an international spy or be destroyed by a hidden bomb. Capture the enemy's flag and win the game. Stratego!
Remember that? This is Douglas Viviani. We're here with Dan Neuburger, toy and board game aficionado, and David Cohen. On Everything Old is New Again, we're revisiting vintage games and taking a look at how there's a resurgence now in board games, and hopefully having some effect upon the family and just having some fun instead of standing around with a tablet. And you see those pictures of on the computer. We've got like 6 or 7 girls at a sleepover or something, and they're all on.
No one's talking to each other. Right?
No one's talking. They're all on the tablet. And I don't know if that's set up or is that real. It seems to be real.
I think it's real.
Is that weird?
For sure real.
And also kids like I know,
but they're still sharing with each other. It looks like they're doing something that's very isolated, but a lot of times they're doing Snapchats and they're
talking to each other.
Or they're messaging. Right,
yeah, they're 3 feet away from each other and they're instant messaging each other.
But they're not playing Stratego.
That's a great game.
Yes, which we'll get to now. We have 2 games this section that I want to focus on. Stratego is one, but before we left the last section talking about Risk. Now these games are somewhat related, not really, but in theme they're related. In practice, there's certainly different games. But back to Risk. Risk it was a game of world domination. The board is the world itself divided up into a number of countries, and you get to have an army. And of course, the other team has an army, or the other people have armies. And you roll the dice. And how do you acquire more armies? Do you remember this?
Well, so in the beginning of the game, depending on how many countries you have, you get additional armies. You then place those armies on the countries that you already have, and based upon where you have armies, you can attack or defend your various countries. The thing, I love that game. I mean, it was a game that really did take a long time to play, but you learn all about the world, like, what countries are where, although I'm still trying to figure out what Kamchatka.
Yeah.
I still don't know what that is. I know that you could bridge to Alaska on the other side of the
I wonder
border.
if they've upgraded the names of some of them. I haven't seen it in a while.
Well, the world has certainly changed several times over since we were, at least when we were young, because you had a lot of countries form into the Soviet Union and then dissolve out of the Soviet Union.
Right.
So, that's interesting. But that was a great game. It was actually a complicated game to learn how to play, but I thought it was one of the best games that I remember playing as a kid.
In college, we said we wanted to take a weekend and play this in the dorm. So we had 8 people playing. Now, how we did it was we had 4 people that were, let's say, the president of a particular country, let's say, or your group, and we had a second person who was a prime minister. And what they could do, we added this, the prime minister then could go in the hallway with another prime minister and make deals out of the earshot of the players, so to speak. So, don't attack us for 5 moves, and we won't attack you for 5 moves. Let's both get Dave Cohen's army instead.
That's a very nuanced advancement of the game, actually. I like that. I don't remember ever doing that as a kid, but I actually do like that.
We did that, and then we also added an element of beer to the game. So we were in college, let's face it, and at that point the drinking age was 18. Let's be clear. So it was something we could do and had some fun with. But we certainly, we geeked out. There were no. We didn't leave. We ordered pizza in, and we played this game for the weekend. Not kidding.
So let me ask you a question. Do you guys remember playing this game and ever actually finishing the game?
We did finish that one time. That's why I remember it. But I played it probably another 20 times. And you're right. I can't
ever remember.
And why
finishing
not?
The game. Because it takes forever. I mean, right. It's hard work to dominate the world.
The other thing is there's these little pieces that are the army pieces,
right.
and if you can just go to the men's room and bunk into that table a little bit, you're in trouble. So maybe you need to put a little stick-em on the bottom of these things.
Yeah, I think when the game first came out, they were colored wooden squares, and then they turned into these like 3-sided odd-shaped things that were easy to pick up with your fingers. And I think they did that because you could fit more of them on some of the smaller countries. I mean, I remember, it's funny now thinking back to that game, there were certain countries that are not particularly meaningful in the world of diplomatic relations today, like Greenland. But Greenland was really important in that game because it was the gateway between Europe and North America.
Yeah, because there was no airfare, so to speak. It was always ground battles.
You had to move ground to ground.
Yeah,
right?
That was a great game. I enjoyed that. Then there's a game my brother and I played forever, Stratego, which we heard the commercial for. It's a board game. It's almost like chess, I'm going to kind of say.
Yeah, it's an updated version of chess.
And tell us what basically is the idea behind it.
Well, it's so similar to chess where you have to capture the king, you have to capture the other person's flag. And there were different characters, just like there were in chess. You'd have the bombs. You had the spy, who I think was the only character that could take a bomb away from somebody else. Like I used to surround my flag with bombs. The problem was if you got attacked by a spy and the bomb was gone, within one move you were dead.
Exactly.
But the concept is essentially
But the spy
like
could be defeated by anything
other
else.
character.
So I would put some 9s in there, if you know what those are. Like I don't know, with little lieutenants or something. And so if the bomb was defeated, then you just beat the.
I think the higher number was the lowest value. Like if a 9 attacked an 8, the 8 won.
Right.
Yeah,
that was more
a fun
9s
game.
than 8s and more 7s than 8s and all that.
Exactly. Right. Colonels were 2s, generals were 1s, or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Great game. Do you remember that, David? You played with your brothers?
I was never into the military thing.
Oh, okay.
It just anytime I saw Risk or Strategic, I got
what about
immediately
chess?
turned off.
Do you play chess?
No, I played chess, but I never really liked it.
Right.
I was more of like being outside and just playing games outdoors.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or just
so you would bring the Risk game outside and play outside.
Yeah. More like a physical kind of sport. Like I was a very simple person.
And
I didn't have the brain for this stuff.
I see. Well, that's certainly a show for another day as well, because there is something to be said for actually going outside and doing things. But
not that there's anything wrong with this, but it just wasn't me. Like I wasn't that into board games. I would take my action figures and go outside or throw a football or something outside. Or even indoors, we'd create our own games that somehow involve physical activity with a ball or something like that. Where you were trying to destroy somebody by throwing it at them or whatever. But yeah,
so
very little thinking, in other words.
Did you have an argument over the Captain America or Captain Action, I should say, versus G.I. Joe? You're saying you used G.I. Joes and things, or no?
Well, there's a story about that. I don't know if we have time to go into that.
We've got 2 minutes.
Okay, well, it's perfect. So my dad was very much against boys having dolls, right? That was just a big no-no. But my mother convinced him that, I should have one because they were incredibly popular. Every boy had one. So I wanted a Superman. I wanted to buy Superman, and he said no because apparently Superman wasn't masculine enough. Because he held up a G.I. Joe. He says, if you want something, you're getting this. It's G.I. Joe. He's a soldier. That's what you're getting. And I don't know why G.I. Joe is more masculine than Superman, but in his mind it was. Maybe because Superman had a cape. I don't know. Maybe that wasn't, macho enough. So I had to buy the G.I. Joe and play with the G.I. Joe, which was fine. But the revenge I got was when he went shopping. My son, who was about 5 or 6 at the time, we went to FAO Schwartz when that was still a big toy store, and he wanted an action figure, and he wanted Cinderella, and you
struggled with that?
No, I didn't, because my dad was with us, so I was like, this is my revenge. This is my revenge. And my dad was like, well, Ben, how about this? He's holding him another G.I. Joe or something like that. And I said, no, I want Cinderella.
How about this pocket knife?
Exactly. I said, Dad, he wants Cinderella. He's getting Cinderella.
And how did it sit with him?
He didn't say anything. I think he realized that, this was... I said, and I told him, I said, it's payback for not letting me have the doll of my choice.
See, he could be having Captain Action, and Captain Action may still be in business had you, Dad, purchased me the Captain Action Superman. And
was Cinderella one of the outfits for Captain Action? I don't remember that.
Maybe it is now, but back then, no.
Yeah, that's right.
We'll be back right after this. Everything old is new again. Talking about toys and board games. This guy.
This is Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Got family game night on the brain?
Wednesday. It's Wednesday.
Bring home a new game and bring your family together with Picturica and other great Hasbro games.
Picturica!
Welcome back to Everything Old is New Again. We're talking about family game night and the resurgence of board games and toys. We're here with, of course, the vintage gamer himself, David Cohen, and we are having some fun with another Rogues Gallery member doing his second of 3 shows in a row on toys, and his name is Dan Neuburger, another alumni from Half Isle Hills High School East on Long Island. Look at that one up. We're going to put that what do you call that high school on the map with this show and last show.
The Rogue Gallery, right?
Exactly, the Rogues Gallery himself. Dan, you having a good time?
I am. It's great to see you guys.
I wish we could say the same.
Thanks, Dave.
Bringing back great memories. You're saying it was like sitting at
Now I remember why it's been so long since I talked to you.
There you go. It says it's saying it reminds you of the days when we were sitting around the lunch table. What would you say? I don't know. We had that pizza, that square slab of bready pizza.
We called it pizza, right? Yeah.
I go right for the Linden's chocolate chip cookies.
You are a big Linden's guy with the chocolate milk you used to have with that.
Oh yeah. Good
right?
stuff.
And we would sit around and talk all this stuff, which was the genesis of everything old is new again, you could say.
Right. Now we just have mics in front of us. That's the only difference. And a few more gray hairs.
Recording this for posterity. Here is a game. Game is not really the name. It's really a toy. See if you remember this. You can't even define this. See if you remember this. It was called Super Elastic Bubble Plastic.
Sure, yeah.
And super elastic bubble plastic. Plastic bubbles from a tube. Just squeeze it out and blow it up. They last and last. Super elastic bubble plastic. Sold separately from Whammo.
Now, first of all, is Whammo still in existence?
They make Frisbee, yeah.
Oh, there you go, right.
Yeah.
But now, do you remember the smell of that?
It's funny you say that. So I was going to say that this was the toy, I think, that inspired the line from the movie Airplane, where they said, you picked the wrong day to stop sniffing glue. This stuff could literally, in retrospect, make you high smelling it. It smelled awful. It's one of two toys that I remember from my childhood that just turned me off because they smelled so bad.
And it's weird because as soon as I heard that commercial, the sensory thing kicked in, and I could smell it. I could actually smell it again.
It was like a multicolor stuff that would glob out from the tube. You'd put it on the end of the straw, right? And then you'd blow into the straw and you'd make this bubble that would get enormous. But the whole time you were blowing it, like the combination of the smell and the force of blowing out would give you head rushes.
It would. And you started thinking there's something like intriguing about that smell. I might, maybe when I'm older I might experiment with it. But it was so toxic, right? Between the odor and the actual substance itself. It was
well,
horrible.
As you were blowing up the bubble, if you breathed in, I mean, let's face it, we were kids, so you weren't really, breathe out.
And you
again.
put that stuff in your mouth. Yeah, it was
you were ingesting
but
that.
it was fun.
There's no question that stuff was terrible for you. There's no question.
And there's no question of reason why it no longer exists. But what did you do with the bubble once it was done anyway?
You pinched it closed, and then you'd bounce it around a couple times, and then you'd get bored, then you'd sit down and you'd start all over and do it again.
I remember trying to put things in the bubble and then trying to seal it up again.
Ooh, that's
inside.
very sophisticated.
Yes.
I never did that.
I do remember you could open it up because it was very pliable and kind of strong. You throw something in there and then secure it closed again, and it would close. It's very sticky stuff also.
I tried to put it in my brother
hands.
He's still trapped in it.
He's still in the.
So
are
we suggesting stay away from super elastic bubble plastic for family family board night, family game night?
I can't imagine they still make that stuff.
They do make something similar. If you go online, you can see. I forget the name of it. It's just called like Bubble Maker or something like that. But it's not the same. Yeah. With all the, I mean, the colors too. Think of all
very
the dyes.
Right? Oh, that's right.
They put all kind of colors in there. It could not be healthy in any way, shape, or form. But they also mentioned something else, a Super Ball, which was very kind of a cool thing because you would bounce it a little bit and it would go like crazy. Right. I don't know how it was made. It was very dense, I guess. But what's your experience with the Super Ball?
I love the Super Ball. I used to play handball with the Super Ball, and that's really hard to do because that ball moves. It really moves.
You need a big court,
and so that was cool. You inevitably you'd lose it at some point because it would bounce so far away or whatever.
I remember with the Super Bowl, if you put a spin on it, you could actually make it because it was the rubber was so like it would catch onto the ground. If you put a spin on it, you could actually make it move in different directions.
So that reminds me of the one that was called Play-Doh, not Play-Doh, Silly Putty.
Silly Putty.
It's a form of Play-Doh, I guess you say, but Silly Putty was in a little bit of an egg-shaped container, right? Two things you could do with it. First, what I enjoyed doing, I would put it on the comic books, and it would take off of the comic books, or I did on the Sunday comics because I don't want to ruin my comic books. The ink, and you would see the ink on this.
You could stretch it,
right. So you would stretch and see what's going on in that particular frame, or you roll it up, and it was a form of Super Bowl. Am I wrong?
That's true.
Well, it wasn't anywhere near as bouncy as the Super Bowl was, and I actually think that Silly Putty was something that was invented during the Second World War when there was research being done. I forget what it was for. I think it was for repairing tires on Army vehicles.
I think you're right. Yeah.
I don't remember exactly what the story was, but that's that's when Silly Putty was invented.
How about that?
Yeah.
Didn't know about
Things
that.
you did not know or care to know.
That's why you listen to Everything Old is New Again, that's for sure.
I feel like I'm a better person now, then.
All right, there's another one. I think this may be the one you're talking about, another one that you remember the smell of. I certainly remember the smell of this one, and I don't think this exists now either. So this is sort of unique topics here that may or may not be subject to coming back for the family, what are we calling it? Family game night, right?
Spiders, lizards, snakes, dragonflies. Make them yourself with this nice plastic goop. Choose a mold, pour in the goop, heat it, and presto chango, you've got bugs. Squiggly, squirty bugs. Get Mattel's new thing maker with creepy crawlers. You can tell it's Mattel. It's swell.
I don't know if you caught all that. The guy was kind of a creepy voice and whatever, but do you remember the creepy crawlers?
I do remember creepy crawlers, and there's a reason why they don't sell creepy crawlers anymore. They actually came out with an edible version of creepy crawlers, but the problem was that if you made the wrong creepy crawler and ate it, not realizing it wasn't the edible one, you would obviously have lots of problems. But I remember that there was two toys that you would put in the oven, right? There was this one, and there was
the Easy Bake,
Shrinky Dinks. So you would on this like sheet of paper, you would make a drawing, then you'd put it in the oven, and it would shrink down to about 1 inch by 1 inch, and it would become hard plastic.
Yes,
and it was actually pretty cool. But it was, obviously you don't want 6-year-old kids playing with the oven, so it wasn't a brilliant idea from the get go. But yeah, that was why creepy crawlers, I think, stopped being made. Was
creepy crawlers? Just if you don't really know what that was or couldn't make out from the commercial, you basically pouring into a mold liquid plastic, and then you'd put it into an oven, and then you would, after a little while, it would heat enough where it would congeal. You would take it out, let it cool, and you'd take it out from the mold, and it was pliable. It was
like spiders and worms, and in those shapes, right?
Yeah, and it was, and they came out with a lot of different shapes after a while, and kids would go into school with them. I remember this in like first, second grade, and you'd be like, "Where'd you get that from?" "Oh, I have a creepy crawler," and that person instantly became your best friend for the week. You went over to their place with your suitcase of Hot Wheels toys, and in turn, you played with those, and you made some.
See, I don't remember creepy crawlers being a bad smelling product. I actually thought you were going to say something else, because there is another product that just turns my stomach to this day when my kids start playing with it. That's Play-Doh.
Right. Which is the final one in this genre. Now, Play-Doh is, out of all of these, is one that has survived, and to this day is morphed. They have a lot of different machines. You can make different kinds and molds, different kinds of things with Play-Doh. So Play-Doh is pliable and different colors. And what, you hate the smell of it?
Even going back to when I was a kid, I couldn't play. It was great because it was a really creative toy. You could make whatever you wanted. You could make things that would interact with your Hot Wheels or whatever other toys you were playing with. But the problem was, I don't even know how to describe the smell to anybody who hasn't ever smelled it, but it was awful. It would turn my stomach. So when my kids were younger and my wife bought them Play-Doh, I was immediately turned off. I was like, I don't even want to be in the same room. I can't play that game. I'll play anything else. I don't want to play with Play-Doh.
Is that when you took out that super bubble elastic?
Exactly.
Thing?
I would go sit in the living room with the super bubble elastics. Yeah, exactly.
We'll be back right after this. Continue talking about toys and games, family game night, and Everything Old is New Again. We'll be back next week with Dan Neuburger, Douglas Viviani, David Cohen to continue Family Game Night, some ideas.
I will see my dream.